Hey guys, how are you doing? I want to show you something, right? Just let me show you that. So this is the picture of the hotel, the very luxurious hotel where we had the Korea Africa Foreign Minister meeting. So very interesting. I thought I'd show you that. So the second picture here, what you see is a table, obviously, right? So that's what you're gonna tell me. So that's a round table, more precisely. So in Seoul, in South Korea, is June 2nd, 2026. And on that table, you could see nameplates, right? That's fine. So one of them would read. So if you look on the far right, I know it's not very legible, but let me just tell you, I'm sure you could clearly identify a little bit. You can see, so His Excellency Wamkiri Kebetse Mene, which is the Secretary General of the African Continental Free Trade Area. And in the middle, so I can't really read it, but if you look on the far left, what could you see? Tony TU, CEO, Renewables in Africa. Yes, this is me. My nameplate. So I am not telling you that to boast, guys. Yeah. Although at times it's good to be boasting, right? So you're working hard when you have great event that you're part of it, you should obviously be proud of yourself. But it's not about me, it's about the moment that it represents. No, not personally. Because it tells us where Africa is right now in the eyes of the world. That's what I want to say. Because I just came back from Seoul, right? That was South Korea. And what I witnessed over the 3 days I was there changed the way I think about Africa and its place in the global economy. And today, I'm going to share with you 5 things that I took away from that trip and I definitely wanted to share, right? So stay with me and let's talk about that because I'm sure you'll find it very, very interesting, guys. Okay? Okay. See you soon. Hello, everybody. How are you doing? My name is Tony, the founder and CEO of RIA. What we do is very simple. We raise awareness about renewable energy and sustainability. So, if you're interested to break or expand into Africa, we are your eco bridge to this market, and we can help you with the visibility, the leads, but also the deals. Or if you're looking to decarbonize, we again your eco bridge to sustainable pathway, and we can help you with carbon footprint assessment and carbon reduction strategy. So, reach out to us. I will be more than happy to talk to you about that. So, Seoul, South Korea. There are things that I believe every African and also anyone building in Africa right now needs to understand, right? And let me just come back to that. I think there's just so many things I could take from this trip. But I just want to limit myself to just 5 key points. And those 5 key points, I believe, will help you to better understand so what we're talking about here. So the first thing that I want to talk about is the fact that for me, so South Korea's story is Africa's mirrors, right? And let me just explain that to you a little bit so you'll be able to see. So in 1953, so we had the Korean War, which ended, and South Korea was devastated. The infrastructure was destroyed. The economy was collapsed, right? And the country was in ruins. And the GDP per capita, I think many of you will know that by now. So it was lower than many African countries at the time, including my own country, Cameroon. And today, what do we see? So South Korea has nearly a $2 trillion economy. It's home to big brands, renowned everywhere that we know. Samsung, I have a Samsung phone. Hyundai, I used to have a Hyundai. So LG, Kia, so Hanwha, it's a global technology powerhouse, and they all did it in 60 years, a couple of generations that we can talk about. So when I walked through Seoul, I just didn't see a beautiful modern city. What I saw was actually a blueprint. What I saw was what a deliberate, long-term, infrastructure-led development actually looks like when a nation commits to it, but seriously. And I thought, actually, Africa, our beloved continent, has more natural resources than Korea ever had, right? So Africa as well has a younger population. Africa has land, sun, winds, minerals, and water. And Africa has the AfCFTA, which is the largest free trade area on the planet. You need to know that. But what Africa needs, it's the discipline, the infrastructure, and also the global partnership to execute. And for me, Korea just proved that it can be done. If we follow the Korea example, I'm sure there's a lot that we can achieve on the continent, definitely. And that will actually take me to my takeaway number two. And the takeaway number two, it's this one. So infrastructure is not a luxury. It's the foundation of everything. And we actually did discuss that at the roundtable that I was into. I'm showing you, for example, here, it's a picture of all the attendees of the roundtable. So you can see it's a gentleman here all in white. So on the back of it, you should be able to see me a little bit, right? Although I know it's not very, very clear. So another picture here, it's showing the actual roundtable, in full display. So yeah, I think very good discussion that we had, right? And what I was saying, the takeaway point number two is that infrastructure is luxury. It's the foundation of everything. So after the Korea Africa Business Forum ended, yeah, I'm telling you that because it may be a small thing, but it stayed with me, and clearly for me says a lot. Because when the forum ended, because I was staying in that hotel anyway, so I stayed back a few minutes and I watched the venue begin clearing the room. And I can tell you, in less than an hour, I mean less than even 1 hour, the room that has hosted, over 300 government officials, ministers, ambassadors, but also business leaders, everything was completely cleared. Yeah. Table were moved, chairs, they were stacked, equipment were packed, the floor was clean, done. Also, my God, what have I witnessed here? And those little details that says a lot about the way the system is organized. Yeah. It might not sound significant, but I've been to events across Africa, Europe, where that process alone would take half a day and even more. And what I was seeing there was system, discipline, execution, and infrastructure. Korea doesn't just build physical infrastructure, road, rail, port, grid. It also builds organizational infrastructure, process infrastructure, the invisible infrastructure that make things actually work. That's what I'm talking about here. And that gap between the aspiration and the execution is often where Africa loses time. And closing it starts with the discipline of doing small thing right every single time. And that's actually what I really think. Yeah, I don't know what you feel about that, but like I say, it was really, really beautiful to see. Like it just really stayed with me. Let me move on to my takeaway point number three, because I don't want to leave you here or keep you here for the whole day, right? Yeah, we have a lot of things to do. And I promise you, I would just want to be as swift as possible. So I'm just going to share with you another picture, and then I'll talk you through what I want to share in here. So what I'm sharing here are the 5 core value slides, Africa in the world's attention. Yeah. So a presentation was delivered. So let me just first of all tell you what the takeaway point is for me. It's the fact that the world has already done its analysis on Africa. That's actually what I want to say. Yeah. So at the Korea Africa Business Forum, there was a presentation, many presentations delivered, but there's a presentation delivered on Africa's role on the global economy. And on screen, you had this slide, right? So you could see the reason is not very clear because I was not very clear. I went not very close from the screen. So I just sort of took what I could from where I was sitting. And it's titled, as you can see, African the World's Attention, the 5 core values. Let me walk you through that because this is not produced by an African institution. That's actually my point in here. This was Korea analysis of Africa. And that's what is actually very important to see. Yeah. So it's Korea analysis of Africa. And number one, as you could see, it's actually the private investment-led growth. So Africa is a continent driving economic growth through private investment and business activity beyond aid. The world has to move on from the aid narrative. Have we? That's a question I want to ask, right? So number two, the green hydrogen hub. So Africa is recognized as an ideal location for green hydrogen production. Vast land, abundant renewable energy resources. The likes of Morocco, Namibia, South Korea is already positioning, and the world is watching. Yeah, they definitely watch it, I can tell you. Number three, you can see here the source of critical minerals: cobalt, lithium, manganese, graphite. So the building blocks of batteries, of EVs, and the clean energy transition. So Africa holds a disproportionate share of the world critical minerals, and and I'm going to repeat that, every major economist knows it. Yeah. Number four, fintech expansion. So they know that Africa is leading the world in fintech-driven formalization of informal markets, M-Pesa, Flutter Wave. So the mobile money revolution. The world is watching Africa in here, not the other way around. And number five, you have the regional cooperation framework, the AfCFTA. One continent, one market, 54 countries, 1.4 billion people, and 3.4 trillion in GDP. A trading bloc that has, when fully operational, rival the EU in scale. Guys, what I've actually shown you here, it's the word analysis of Africa, right? It's important to understand that. They've done the analysis. The question is whether Africa is ready to be the partner, not just the resource. Guys, that's what we're talking about here. So you can see why it's important to be part of this kind of summit, because you're learning a lot. You're learning about what people are actually saying. Yeah. And that's actually would take me to the takeaway number four. I know we're moving fast, but it's important here. And the fact that the African continent is organizing itself and the leader is clear. So who's the leader I'm talking about here? I'm talking about the leader of AfCFTA here. This is this gentleman, which is His Excellency Wamkele Mene, right? And I've also had a chance to talk to him and learn a bit more about what the organization is doing. And at the Korea Africa Business Forum, I sat in a room with every 20 African foreign ministers, right? So I watched them stand on stage. So alongside Korean government officials and also business leaders. So I saw them, and actually you could see they were all there to promote the country. And it was actually good to see. Yeah. And obviously His Excellency Mene took the floor, the Secretary General of AfCFTA. And this is actually the man who personally invited me to the committee. And I wanted to hear directly from him because word on the script won't do justice, right? So let me just play a section of his speech in here. So I won't be most likely be able to play all of it because maybe a little bit too long for you, but I want you to at least get a glimpse of what he was saying.
Your Excellency Minister, you can show you ministers of foreign affairs that are here from our business that are here, also from our continent, President of Cabinet Motor Group, distinguished ladies and gentlemen. It is an honor and a privilege to be here this morning. I want to start by thanking you, Excellency, for convening us here. You have been in this capacity in less than a year, and yet you have been able to convene a record number of ministers from our continent to discuss our strategic partnership. And so thank you for your leadership. Let me also appreciate the partnership that we have developed over the last 3 to 4 years with the private sector in Korea, who have really been very, very instrumental in our key drivers of our vision for trade and investment and a sustainable trade and investment arrangement between Korea and our continent. The global economy, as we all know, is undergoing profound structural changes. Geopolitical tensions that have now spilled into open warfare, supply chain fragmentation, climate change pressures, and rising protectionism and the weakness of the multilateral trading system. In this context, countries, regions are looking to expand partnerships, diversify their export markets, and develop long-term trade and investment partnerships that offer predictability, certainty, and reliability. Against this backdrop, Africa-Korea relations are evolving beyond traditional development cooperation models. Ministers of Foreign Affairs discussed this nature of and model of cooperation that we want to develop. They discussed this in detail yesterday. It is anchored really on mutually beneficial trade and investment partnerships, technology transfer, development of reliable supply chain networks across regions, as well as an accelerated agenda for industrial development. The continent of Africa offers a population in a combined market of 1.4 billion people, with a median age of 90 years old. By the turn of the century, the projections are that 1 in 4 people will be in the African continent, with the youngest working force in the world in Africa. As we speak today, the market in Africa is combined 3.4 trillion United States dollars. It is, of course, fragmented, but through the AfCFTA, our leaders are transforming it. We're transforming this under the leadership of our heads of states to become an integrated, predictable, and investable continental market. 50 state parties have now started implementing the AfCFTA. That is to say, 50 members of the African Union constitute the significant market that is the AfCFTA. Tariff liberalization is advanced. By the year 2030, we expect that intra-Africa trade will be at zero duty across all products as determined by the Assembly of Heads of States and Government.
And that's what you were able to see, right? So that is the leadership Africa needs at this precise moment. Not asking a seat at the table, building the table, and inviting the world to sit down. So the AfCFTA for me is not just a trade agreement, right? It is Africa's most powerful geopolitical instrument right now, right? And the world from Korea to Europe to the Gulf is responding to it. And as I say, it was actually very good to see that in action. So what is actually been building. And let me move to this five pillar or the five takeaway that I have, which is the Korea Africa Committee, which is not real, right? So I think I show you a picture of the committee that we had right there. So and obviously in and it was a discussion that closed door discussion that we had. So that's just again the picture which I've shared at the beginning that I'm sharing again in here. And what I could say is this, and it's probably the most significant for what is going to happen forward. On the afternoon of that 2nd June, so a new institution was formally convened for the first time, which is the Korea Africa Committee, which is a KAEC, and a business roundtable bringing together Korean and other African private sector leaders alongside AfCFTA and the KITA leadership to identify practical areas of cooperation in mining, in energy, manufacturing, and digital transformation. And this wasn't a panel discussion; it was a network lunch kind of thing or discussion. So it was structured, formal, inaugural session with nameplate, microphone, simultaneous interpretation, and also really institutional backing. And renewables in Africa had a seat at that table next to the AfCFTA Secretary General in a room with the chairman of KITA. KITA is actually the Korean International Trade Agency. And African chambers head, Korean industry leaders, and the energy of the discussion was incredible. Decarbonization, investment, future. So 7 years ago, I started this platform, Renewables in Africa, with a belief that Africa clean energy story deserves to be told at the highest level of global decision making. You know, not just in development reports, not just in aid conferences, but in the rooms where capitals move, partnerships form, and also economic history gets written. Yeah, and this is where we were able to achieve. So, what does this mean for you, right? You're probably gonna see me ask you. So, whether you are an African entrepreneur, an investor, a professional, a company looking in Africa, here is what I believe you also want to take away. Number one, you need to understand that Africa is already positioned by others. It's very important to understand that. Korea has built an institutional framework, the KAEC, KAEC, with Kita after the Kita AfCFTA MOU, the foreign minister meetings, specifically to deepen its African relationship. This is not clarity, this is strategy, guys. China did it 20 years ago, and the Gulf is doing it now. So Korea is doing it. So the question is, are African at the table shaping those deals, or are they being shaped by them? This is the question we're talking about here, and you need to really understand that. Yeah. So the second thing that you want to take away is that infrastructure, you want to take that very seriously, both physical but also organizational. So the Korean lesson is not just about road and power. It's about system, discipline, and execution culture. I want to insist on that. So in your business, your team, your sector, what is the invisible infrastructure you are building? If you're not doing that, you run into trouble. So the processes, the standards, the habit that compounds over years into something extraordinary. Number three, yeah, it's you need to know your value and stop underselling yourself, right? So green hydrogen, critical minerals, private investment led growth, regional integration. So Korea didn't define this as Africa value out of generosity. No, they didn't. They define it because they need them. As simple as that. So Africa is not a charity base, a charity case, basically. Africa is a strategic partner as the way they see that. And I can tell you, in pretty much all the conversation I've been part of, I think that's actually what was repeated over and over again. And sooner, African businesses, institutions, government would operate from that position. So the better the deal will be. That's actually what I think. Yeah. So this is what I wanted to share with you, because I came back from Seoul with something I didn't fully expect. Yeah, not just ideas, not just contact, not just content. We have all of it. Great. But I came back with a renewed sense of urgency. Yes. And the reason I'm saying that is because the the world is not waiting, for Africa to be ready. The world is already moving. The partnership are being formed and the framework are being built. The capital is beginning to flow. And that is either the most exciting thing you've ever heard today or the most urgent. I believe it is both, right? So Africa clean energy story, Africa economic story, it deserves to be told well at the highest level with confidence, with data, and with authority. And this is why Renewables in Africa exists. And this is why I was in Seoul, right? More to come from the street. But guys, make sure that you subscribe to follow our journey. And if you are building in African energy space, and you want to connect, come and find us. We'll be more than happy to always have a conversation with you. So I'm Tony. This is Renewables in Africa. An Africa moment, it's not coming. It is already here. And I'm happy to share that with you. Okay. I know it was a little bit of a long video, but guys, at times we need it. Yeah. Take care, guys. Bye bye.